I just want somebody to talk Dodgers to me. Welcome back to Talk Dodgers to Me. My name is Melissa Meyer, and I am so happy to introduce my new friend, Ericka Claudio.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here, Melissa. Thank you for having me today.
Oh, you are so welcome. So, here at Talk Dodgers to Me, the theme really is more than baseball. It's been a theme in my life. It is the heartbeat of this show. Yeah. And I know that's exactly what today's conversation is going to be, because we met last week.
Yes, crazy.
When I was out to lunch in Venice.
Yes.
And you saw some Dodger books next to me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. And we kind of bonded over our shared fatherly introduction to baseball, which was really exciting.
But like most things, a conversation that starts in baseball always ends up being something more. And I really walked away from that lunch feeling so inspired and like overwhelmed with empowerment from everything you were talking about and everything you're doing. And in a time where it's very scary in the world, and we're living in a time and a country that I don't recognize, sports is really something that brings us together.
Yeah.
And you were teaching me so many things about what you're doing that I had no idea about. So that's really why I wanted to bring you here today, because if I don't know a lot of this stuff, I'm sure so many of my listeners don't either. And to feel like we can take action and do something to create change and not feel hopelessness is really important right now.
Yeah, I think that it's incredible that you understand the cultural power and the cultural currency of sports, particularly the Dodgers, one of the most successful teams in sports enterprise across every type of league, So incredible work for you as well, just really super empowered. And honestly, in a time where independent media is being scrutinized, it's important to have folks like yourself willing to find inclusive and neutral ways to have really important discussions. So I'm really honored to be here, and I'm so grateful that you were inspired by our work. We're very grateful.
Well, before we dive into everything you're doing, let's start with the baseball.
Yes.
So where are you from, and where did your love of baseball come from?
My love of baseball was passed down to me from my father. He's Puerto Rican, and we're from New York. My father was born in Santurce, Puerto Rico, but fell in love with my mom in Brooklyn, where I was born. And just really kind of was introduced to sports through his passion and his love for sports. Everything from horse racing to baseball, he was a massive fan of. My dad, unfortunately passed away last year. So I feel like what a serendipitous moment from the other side of reality. He's forcing me to continue this love in so many cool ways, such as meeting you at the restaurant, which prompted our initial conversation.
I actually think when we started talking, we both said at the same time, our dads are why we love baseball. And our amazing friend Gwen was there too, who was the one who gave me the Dodger books, which started this whole thing. So and our initial connection was Dodgers too.
Yeah, sports is such a cultural connector. And I think that right now it is one of the few safe spaces where people feel like they can just show up without the divisive culture that is currently taking up so much of our country and so much of our cultural climate. I mean, but rightfully so. There's a lot happening and people are really uncomfortable, but sports is one of the few safe spaces we have left culturally to be a little bit inclusive and come together. So I hope we can hold on to that for a lot longer.
Absolutely. I mean, my listeners know that baseball has always been my escape, and I love it for that reason. But when you're at a baseball game and a big home run happens, you're high-fiving and hugging everyone around you. You're not thinking about where they're from or who they voted for. It's just an immediate connection, and that's really what I think we all need more of right now.
Absolutely.
But you also mentioned Puerto Rico.
Yes.
And we have some Puerto Rican players on the Dodgers. Fan favorites. Well, actually, we will sign him back, Kike Hernandez. Every Dodger fan is thinking about that. But also our newest Dodger, Edwin Diaz. So I love that your dad is from Puerto Rico.
Yeah, we're the best. We love Puerto Ricans love baseball. It's a huge part of the culture there, and I think that we're just really good at it too. So I think lucky Dodgers to have Puerto Ricans on their team.
Absolutely,
everyone needs a Puerto Rican on their team.
Was your dad a Brooklyn Dodger fan? Was he a Yankee fan?
He was a Yankee fan. Okay. No shade, no tea, but but my dad loved just good sport He loved good music. He loved anything that was just a good time. He was a very complicated man, but he loved to have a good time, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm so grateful that I can like honor him and speak to his love for baseball in this opportunity that you're giving me right now.
What was his name?
Ernie.
Ernie?
Yes, Ernie. Ernest Ernie, for short.
One of the best parts about having this podcast is that I get to keep the memory alive of my dad and my family members that have passed. So I love just speaking their name and letting
Yes.
us remember these people who made us who we are.
Yeah, because it's all connected,
Mm-hmm.
your parents come and they create a life and a DNA pattern that they pass down to you, some of the good, some of the bad. And then like when they're no longer here, it's hard to still feel connected to them. But when you have moments like a sports game or
Mm-hmm.
a sound of music that they love to hear, or even an outfit that you have of theirs, like a jacket of theirs, it's a way of keeping their legacy alive. And grief is such a complicated emotion. Like everyone probably has a dad at some point that they've lost or they will lose. And each girl probably got a sports team, whether it be basketball, football, baseball, or some of the sports in between, where they're like, my dad taught me that. I think my dad taught me very few things, but the few things that he did teach me, I'm really grateful for. He taught me about baseball. He also taught me
Mm-hmm.
how to make eggs,
Oh, okay.
so I learned a little bit from the guy, and I'm really grateful that it created a pathway even beyond him being here for us to come together and talk about our conversation today.
I love it.
Yeah.
Were you always into activism, or what kind of sparked that journey for you?
For me, I honestly didn't know that activism was an option. I didn't even really know activism or like organizing was what I was doing. I had just always been someone who believed in justice. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
Libra moon. So Libras are all about justice and balance. And I always believed in fairness. It's just something that I can't say I've ever not felt. And then as you get older, I think growing up in the 90s, I didn't really understand what activism was. And then I really didn't understand what it was until, like many people of our generation, Trayvon Martin was killed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that created a cultural moment around digital activism that really introduced me to how to leverage your voice in a way to make change.
That's amazing. So, can you like walk me through you starting what you're doing and just really explain to everyone what
Yeah.
you're building?
Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds a lot cooler than what it actually is.
No, it's very cool.
Well, it's kind of like it's like a secret in politics that a lot of people have heard about, but really don't understand the intricate realities of, which is
Mm-hmm.
super PACs,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I got my career in politics a little over 10 years ago, working with US Senator Bernie Sanders on his 2016 presidential run. It was February 3rd of 2016. That was my first day working on the Bernie Sanders campaign. And I understood then what elections consisted of and what they were. That was my first time really understanding it, having traveled 13 primaries with him. But when I really began to understand power, it completely changed my opinion about elections, which is why ultimately I ended up standing up a super PAC by the
Mm-hmm.
name of My Body PAC. And what we're focused on is reproductive health and bodily autonomy, by leveraging cultural influence and cultural capital to shift policy and electoral
Can you,
outcomes.
because I have heard of PACs and super PACs before, but I don't think I even knew what it stood for. So, can
Nobody
you
knows.
explain?
Nobody
Because
knows.
unless you're
A
curious
billionaire.
enough to ask, or
Yeah,
sometimes you feel like it's a stupid question. So, what does
definitely not.
PAC stand for?
It's designed to feel intimidating. And
Yes.
PACs specifically stands for political action committees. And there are various different types of PACs. You have a super PAC, you have a federal PAC, and then you also have state PACs. And they are designed to influence elections with money. In my case, a federal super PAC can disclose and put unlimited amounts of money and influence and messaging into elections without any restrictions, except for you cannot directly coordinate with any candidate or campaign. When you
Okay.
think about the NRA, when you
Mm-hmm.
think about Big Pharma and other big industries, they're able to lobby and influence outcomes politically through super PACs, because candidates, they have restrictions on how much money they can receive from an individual or from a corporation. Depending on what state it is, it's as little as $5,000 you max out during an entire cycle. Well, it costs millions of dollars to win an election. It costs millions of dollars to put a message out into the world. And the only way that a lot of progressive or even conservative candidates can really survive an election cycle is by being backed by a PAC. They can be backed by a PAC that coordinates directly with them, like the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, or they can be backed by an independent committee, such as a Super PAC, like an APAC, who would do money on the spend money and put resources into a race on the behalf of a particular issue or on the behalf of a particular candidate that they're
I
fighting
love
for.
that. And when we were talking at lunch, what really struck me was you talking about just how everything you're doing is kind of based on a platform of values.
Yes.
Rather than a specific political party. And right
Yes.
now it's like you meet someone and they say if they're Republican or Democrat, and you don't even hear the words that are coming after that because you're just judging them automatically.
Absolutely.
So to really think about what you want and not just be so blinded by this is my party, and understanding what your own values are and what you want to vote for is so important.
It's incredibly
And it
important.
also ties back to baseball because baseball is all about values.
It is. I think sports and culture is all about values. And I think that we're informed by those values every day. And I think in the political climate and the cultural climate that we find ourselves in, we are now having to defend those values. We're now having to stand on those values in a way that might feel slightly uncomfortable or a little bit outside of our comfort zone. And PACs are designed for the most rich, the most powerful to defend their values, to align with the values of the people who are funding their campaigns and the people who are funding their cycles. Whereas what I'm excited to do with our infrastructure is to create an independent infrastructure that does operate completely independently from a party or from a candidate, so that for folks who are feeling lost in this moment, they can align on bodily autonomy, personal freedom being a democratic principle. We're going to partner with cultural institutions and cultural brands to create a new way of political engagement. And I think I've had to separate myself. I've had to isolate myself from what feels like the normal way of political organizing. And I'm taking a massive risk by using a PAC vehicle to push cultural messaging, because culture moves faster than policy. Culture moves faster than an election cycle. And before you can ask someone to go vote, you have to understand their lived experience. And I think that so much of our political climate has completely eliminated the reality that people are actually living in. And I think politics has become a state in which politics wants you to do politics the way that politics wants to do politics.
Well, it seems like there isn't fairness.
It's
extremely out of self-interest, and where you think that there are people in power that want to help you, it doesn't seem like that anymore. So, when we were talking, it really seems like you were blowing my mind with just things that we can do.
Yes.
Because it does feel, I feel helpless sometimes. I feel hopeless that I don't know what to do.
You're never helpless and you're never hopeless. There are parts of democracy that we still have access to. This year, being a midterm election year, is the most critical election of our lifetime. And I know that we've all felt that the last 3 election cycles, but this year is going to be the year that we will fully, truly be able to shift the power dynamics across the U.S. House. I mean, every single U.S. House seat is up for election this year. The U.S. House is who can draft articles of impeachment. They are the people who can enforce federal policy. They are the people who decide how budgets and resources are allocated. And you have U.S. Senate races, you have governorships. These local municipal races, these state races, are our last line of defense for democracy, because our federal government has completely been taken over.
And there's elections starting as early as next month, right?
Absolutely. In 3 states, you have North Carolina, you have Illinois, you have Texas. Arkansas is also going to be voting. I think that the primaries for the midterms are always very confusing, because we have 50 states.
So confusing.
And because we have the sovereignty of state, each state gets to decide when they're going to host an election.
Wow. Honestly, I did not know that. I guess I just assumed November is the election month. And so when you said that, I'm like, okay, people need to know that too.
Yeah, because that's honestly the power of super PACs, because super PACs decide who's viable in a primary, who gets enough funding to talk to voters early and often. That's who wins the primary. If you don't have the resources to tell a voter that you are running to become the nominee for the party in November, then they're just going to vote for whoever is on the top of the ticket in November. And a lot of voters don't really like the candidates that they get to choose in November, but they don't understand that they get to decide who that person is. But it's usually at the very early part of the year or middle part of the year. And this year, primaries go all the way through September. So for the most important election is this one, because this is where we decide who gets to go up against opposition, in November. And that person has to win because the stakes are just high across every single issue, but especially personal freedom.
Another kind of quote that we bonded over was, you don't know what you don't know. And unless
really
you're
don't.
willing to be curious and unless you're willing to ask the questions, you're not going to know. As you're going around and talking to different people and introducing them to the Super PAC, what are common questions that you get asked, or what has surprised you that people don't know about?
People don't know that you can influence elections independently without any restrictions. You can give however much money you want through a Super PAC vehicle, but most people don't have access to that type of infrastructure. Also, people don't understand the timeline of elections and the importance of a primary. A lot of people are designed to think that November is the end all be all, but by the time you get to November, the decision honestly has already been made. That's the final episode of the series, right? If you watch your favorite show and you skip to the last episode in that series, you're going to miss the entire story. The primaries is where the story happens. It's where the power shifts. It's where messaging gets created. When you get to November, that's the finale. But a lot of folks don't understand that. So those are probably the two most popular questions. And I think it's designed to be that way. It's designed for people to be puppets instead of power players. Creating a Super PAC that invites the public into a conversation that only oligarchs have been able to have for the past few decades is very radical. It's a huge risk. It's incredibly terrifying. If I'm being transparent, to do something like this. I'm not Jeff Bezos. I'm not Elon Musk. I'm not any of these folks who have been able to influence elections in a substantial way. I am literally working at 2 restaurants and a yoga studio, taking care of my mom who has dementia. And I'm a person, though, who has had the privilege of understanding power. And now I have to find a way to share that power with as many people as I possibly can through the vehicle of the Super PAC. Jeff Bezos may have a few $100 billion, $100 million bucks, but he's no different than me and you. He shits just like we shit, So it's kind of like he just so happens to have proximity to resources and power, which gives him an advantage. But anyone can go do that. Anyone can stand up a vehicle and push the needle to create a vehicle for resources and power. It's not a popular conversation. So the fact that we're even here talking about it, giving people an entry point to this big rich man's club is very radical. It's very disruptive. For me to even think that I could do this is incredibly disruptive, because most people wouldn't even dream of trying to stand up this kind of infrastructure unless they have 7 or 6 figures to seed it with.
Absolutely. And that's why we need more people like you doing what you're doing.
And when I first did it, I didn't do it well. In 2024, I had to learn all the things that I didn't know. And it's not an easy thing to do.
I kind of want to learn more about that, because like anything, you start something and that's how you learn. You learn from your mistakes. So I'm sure even like different messaging and what actually resonates with people. Like, what were you kind of going through and figuring out, and I'm not going to do this, I'm going to lean into this? Like, what was that journey?
Oh, it was a mess. It was a mess, girl. It was an episode of Real Housewives just waiting to be aired, honey. I mean, you really just had to be there, and I can't get too much into it. But I will say that the ultimate thing was I found out people don't want to share power. When you have the audacity to get access, a lot of folks don't really want you to be in the room.
What do they want?
They want to take up that space for themselves.
Okay.
And I think that also power has a pattern. And if you decide that you don't want to be in that pattern, then you're an outsider, and it makes it a lot harder to build it. When you think about the Bernie Sanders campaign in 2016, he was saying everything we're saying today, but nobody wanted him to be the person to put out that message. So he had an entire it was an entire thing that happened that election cycle where Debbie Schwartzman from the Democratic Party was, had to step down because of the scandal that was happening around his progressive radical message. He was an independent, he was a US senator, and he was running on a message that was separate from the establishment at that
Mm-hmm.
time. Since then, now we've all gotten on the same page. But back then, I've learned that building power requires for you to be okay with pissing people off. It requires for you to be okay with letting people down because, to be honest, sometimes you have to just be willing to stand and color outside of the lines because sometimes coloring inside of the lines just isn't working anymore. And I think that in this country, on so many levels, we're afraid to color outside of the lines because we've been trained to stay put and to be disciplined and to be loyal. But when that loyalty does not get us our basic freedoms, doesn't guarantee us those basic freedoms, then we have to begin to push, ask questions, and demand power. But power is not given, it was taken. And I thought that, having been someone who worked in elections for years and years and worked for so many people who were incredibly progressive, that I would have no problem standing up a super PAC because this is what I gave my life to. But apparently, wanting to do it in a way that feels a bit different than the traditional norm
Mm-hmm.
has put me in a position to have to kind of do it on my own. And I've been blessed enough to find an amazing board, an amazing set of advisors who have volunteered their time and skills to help us build this infrastructure. But without that generosity, I wouldn't really be able to exist.
Yeah. Well, I love what you were just saying there because I think no matter what you do, everyone can relate to that of coloring outside the lines of
Yes.
maybe fear holding you back in a certain way and ruffling feathers or whatever. But that's really what you have to do. And going back to the values of this, so much of what we're talking about, you would think that there's not the selfishness in a job that is supposed to be for the people. And so it's almost like understanding our power and going back to ourselves. And that's where it all starts.
It does.
Understanding who you are, embracing who you are, loving who you are, and then figuring out what you believe.
But we're living in a time where you can no longer be an individual because people are not allowed to be themselves.
And there's cancel culture and all these
Exactly.
things stopping people from speaking at all.
Yeah.
So, in a time where we want to use our voice, we're judging people who are, we're judging people who aren't. It really is scary. So, it really just gives me like even more motivation and more of a reason to admire you to continue going when I'm sure you get pushback all the time.
Every day, like every single day, there's a reason why I shouldn't be doing this. But you got to do it anyway. And it's like, ego is one hell of a drug. So whatever your cause is, even if it's a great cause, if you are doing it from a place of ego, it's not a good thing
Mm-hmm.
because it's the intention is tainted, so it can't be for personal gain. And I think I've done that to a detriment. I talked about in our founding essay on Substack, I talked about how when I first stood up the PAC, I literally lost everything. I mean, when I came back from the 2024 Democratic National Convention from Chicago, I came back to a mom in the hospital. And right before the election took place that November, I had literally just packed up all of my stuff, put it in storage, and went to Pennsylvania to do our programming there, not knowing where I was going to live when I came back to LA. It was a massive sacrifice. And my story is not unique. A lot of Black women have sacrificed their well being, their families, their lives to become the backbone of the Democratic Party, to become the backbone of democracy. When you think about the electorate that Black women take up, we are the most loyal electorate that the country has when it comes to the Democratic Party and these democratic principles that we're talking about. Whereas we're the most disenfranchised group. When you think about reproductive health care and maternal health care, we are dying 3 times the rate higher than any other race of women in this country. So you would think that having this electoral and political power and cultural power that we have, that we would be leading on policy, that we would be leading in power, but we're not. So I think that we are this. My story is 1,000 other stories. There are 1,000 other people like me who have had to sacrifice their means to be able to stand on the right side of history. And I don't take that lightly. And it's nobody's fault. Like, no one told me to go do that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a victim. I chose that. That
Well,
was the
what was
path.
keeping you going?
I mean, the fact that I just launched a pack at the DNC and I couldn't quit, I couldn't quit because life got hard. I just had to fight through it, and I had to be who I said I wanted to be. And it cost me. Choosing the path of self, choosing and following your heart is going to cost you. And you should be able to make that decision at any cost on your own terms, which is why having personal sovereignty and having bodily autonomy is such an important part of living in a democratic state. Because
Mm-hmm.
when you're no longer able to practice that sovereignty and apply it to your life, to be able to decide to start a business or not, to be able to decide to use your voice or not, when you no longer can make that choice on your own, then you don't really live in a free world anymore. And I think that more and more people are becoming increasingly afraid because, to your point, they are not able to show up fully
Mm-hmm.
without the fear of being reprimanded. And that is not the country that we want to live in, but it is the country
Mm-hmm.
that a lot of folks have been living in for a very long time. And I think the curtain has been peeled back to where now everyone can see that that has been the shared and lived experience for so many people.
Let's break this down a little bit because you are the first Black woman to create a super PAC,
For
My Body
reproductive,
PAC,
yeah, for reproductive rights.
all about reproductive rights, body autonomy,
Mm-hmm.
healthcare.
Yes.
So, can you just break it down so people can really understand the exact things that you're fighting for?
So when Roe v. Wade was won in 1973, women had the constitutional right to make decisions about their bodies, when and if they wanted to start a family. But when the Supreme Court made a decision on this case, it was beyond just reproductive rights. It was the question of, is bodily autonomy, personal sovereignty, a constitutional right in America? And the Supreme Court decided yes, that was. However, in 2022, the Supreme Court ruled on the Dobbs decision,
Mm-hmm.
which decided and undid that. And in that decision, we lost not just the right to abortion access, we lost the right to bodily autonomy. Bodily autonomy is the legal language that Roe v. Wade was won on. It is the constitutional right that defended choice, but it also defends disability rights. It also defends workers' rights. It also defends LGBTQ rights. It
Mm-hmm.
is truly the constitutional right to be able to move on your own terms without the interference of the state, to be able
Yeah.
to post on social media a political message without being arrested the next day. That is what we're fighting for. We are
But I don't
fighting
think a
for
lot of
freedom.
people understand that Roe v. Wade goes beyond, pro life or if you're for abortions or not. What you just said, like, I think that is new to people.
It is, but that's by design. People have agendas, right? So when Roe v. Wade was won, it was important for women to feel like they could be free. But
Mm-hmm.
that pathway for freedom was the beginning, not the end. There were other folks like queer folks and Black folks who were not included in that freedom because there are intersectional disadvantages that don't even give them access to care, don't even give them access to true autonomy because of the cultural, political, social disadvantages that plague this country and that have always plagued this country. Roe v. Wade was supposed to be the beginning of freedom, not the end, but we kind of got stuck there. And I think we have an opportunity now to dream beyond that, to do it again, but now do it in a bigger way, a more expansive way, so that next time when we do win bodily autonomy back, it will be through the lens in which everyone will be free and not just the folks who want to be able to have autonomy over their reproductive rights, but for the people who want to be able to have autonomy over their lived experience in this
Mm-hmm.
country.
Mm-hmm. I think what you do really well and maybe is missing from both parties is your messaging and the imagery that you put with it. Like, what kind of went into the creative side of what you're doing to really draw people in?
I am a fan of culture. I grew up reading People's Magazine, Teen Vogue, Cosmopolitan, 17 was my favorite. And I grew up flipping through magazines,
Oh, I love to do
magazine
those
spreads.
quizzes.
Yes, remember the Cosmo
My
quiz?
horoscope every
Jet
time.
Magazine, Jet Beauty of the Week, Essence. These were the things that informed my way of seeing the world because those were the only that was the only thing I had exposure to, something beyond my environment. So I always see issues and I always see the world like a magazine spread. The same way you might have a feature on a person who is like trying birth control for the first time, or someone who like sucks somebody's whatever on the back in the back seat. You know, Cosmo got really rugged, right? But like the way that they would tell these stories, I was always 12-year-old Ericka, who had no business reading that, but I was like, holy moly, like this is a cool way of storytelling. So I love visuals. I love metaphors. And my mom was a teacher. So we used to have to read the dictionary every weekend. And
Really?
yeah, so we were like, I don't know. She's an interesting woman, but we used to have to read the dictionary every weekend. We used to have to do book reports and everything. And we used to have to evangelize gospel to, my mom would send us to school with the gospel scripture from the Bible. And then she would tell us we would have to tell 5 people at our school. We have to share that. And by the time we got home, we would have to have it memorized. And that was like, so all of those little things kind of informed my creativity and how I communicate things, because I had to find a cool way to tell people about Jesus growing up, just to grow up and have an organization that's all about,
Okay, so
reproductive
that
rights.
was kind of the building blocks and the steps to instill those values
Yes.
and that creative side. I love that. And
Absolutely.
I'm
Yeah.
picturing you like flipping through a magazine with like a flashlight under the covers or something.
Absolutely. I mean, I used to be super obsessed with Beyonce when she came out. I mean,
I
I still
still
am.
am.
Right. Like, but I mean, it was a little bit weird for me. Like, I used to like anytime there would be a magazine, it could literally only have to have like a cutout of her head in it, but I would have to buy it. I would cut out her image, and I used to have a Beyonce wall.
Wow.
Where I would add a Beyonce photo to it every single day.
See, I had Derek Jeter on my wall.
Okay. Yeah, okay, Derek Jeter.
And now look at this.
Right. We all have the things that inform us. But Beyonce is also an amazing storyteller. The way that she's able to communicate values without saying them explicitly is an art. More political organizations need to find a way to bridge the gap with cultural institutions like sports teams, media companies, without being so demanding on what the messaging has to be. Sometimes we just got to talk to each other like human beings versus walking targets. I think we need to completely undo and redo the way that we talk to each other about what's happening, because right now it's very divisive. It's hard to be effective. If we can even have a conversation, how are we going to have an election?
I know. But that's also the beauty of sports and why
Exactly.
I knew that I could tie this into this podcast, because you never know what just one shared connection where the conversation can grow from there. And you leave having a new friend or someone that you never thought you'd have anything in common with.
Yeah.
And when you really think about it, we all have so much more in common than we don't. But you don't know that unless you're willing to have those conversations.
You don't know what you don't know.
And I wonder, I know, our favorite.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering just what you've learned about navigating those tough conversations when maybe someone is unwilling to have it, or maybe just successes that you've had in having a productive conversation with someone that you may not see eye to eye with.
Well, you have to be in a flow state. You can't be attached to the outcome. The moment that I want you to think how I think, I'm no longer letting you be free. So how can I say that I am an advocate for personal freedom when I'm forcing you to see and think how I think? I am my own design, and I see the world because of my own experiences and my own values. But if someone disagrees with me, I can't immediately make them my villain because they don't share the same opinion as me. If you really believe in freedom, then you need to allow people to be free, even when you don't agree. As long as it doesn't bring harm to themselves or someone else, people need to be able to be gay. People need to be able to be Black. People need to be able to be poor without the shame, because it's a reality that exists and it's not going anywhere. With politics, there's this big agenda to get everyone to think the same, be the same, want the same. But that's impossible.
Well, if our leaders can't do it, and that's who we're supposed to be looking up to, what message does that send to everybody else?
Exactly. Well, this year we can change that. This year we can change who gets the lead. And I think more people need to be willing to do what I'm doing, take the risk, stand up infrastructure, and run on a platform in an independent way that you feel is true to the communities and the values that you care about. But it does take a hell of a lot of grit, takes a lot of prayer, takes a lot of tears, takes a lot of blood and sweat. But we are the generation responsible for the future. We are the grown-ups now. We now have the responsibility of deciding what world are we going to leave behind. It's us, the millennials, this generation. What are we going to do? Are we going to tweet and cry our ways into a revolution, or are we going to stand up infrastructure that will protect us no matter who's in charge, no matter what's happening? Our parents and grandparents' generations have had to fight for certain freedoms.
Mm-hmm.
We are a generation who has had those freedoms passed down to us. But for the first time in our lives, we're now having to defend the very freedoms that people had to die for before us. And it's like, what are we willing to do? How much are we going to be willing to take? We're looking for a savior, but we are the savior. It's us. It's me and you. It's our friends. It's our colleagues. It's our neighbors. It's up to us, you know? And we have to get to a point where we're willing to make the risk.
Absolutely. Well, it feels like we're moving backwards when we should be moving forwards.
Absolutely.
And obviously that's a huge issue right now. But with what you're doing, there are ways to make us feel that we can keep moving forward.
Yes.
So can you just tell the listeners exactly what they can do to get involved in your Super PAC? Like, what are the steps, website? What can they do today? How can they share about it?
Yeah. Hey.
Like, what is your spiel that you say when you're like meeting someone and just want to tell them and give them like the little, you know, 30-second thing?
My 30-second pitch. Well, you know, My Body PAC is a PAC, a super PAC dedicated to bodily autonomy. And this year we are investing in battleground states where we understand that autonomy is going to be on the line. From state, building strong state power is our end all be all, because we understand that that is the final defense of personal freedom and democracy as we know it. We have an exciting program where people can adopt voters in battleground states. They can adopt voters by donating to our PAC.
What does that mean, adopt a voter?
So with political organizing, you have access to the voter file.
Okay.
You can design a list where you can design a list of folks based on filtering the data on voting patterns, race, voting history, people who vote early versus people who vote on election day. And you can target those people very specifically with a message to turn them out. It costs money to do that, but yes, you can do that. Through our Super PAC, you'll be able to opt into adopting a voter in a battleground state where you'll have an opportunity to get access to our organizing technology to where you can literally text them on big milestones. So you could text a voter in Texas, or you can text a voter in Minnesota and say, hey, did you know that early voting starts today? It's Sarah from California. I'm here with Adopt a Voter in My Body PAC, and we want to make sure you can turn out in this election cycle because it's important. You know,
Can they respond?
Yeah, you can have a whole conversation with the voter.
Wow.
Have you ever done like phone banking for a political campaign before? Where
no, but I'm thinking like this is another way to bring people together.
Absolutely, it's fun. We can have phone
like a
banking.
pen pal.
Yeah, and like in political organizing, we host like pizza nights. We'll have pizza, and we'll have folks come and volunteer their time, 1 or 2 hours, and you can probably talk to about 50 to 100 voters over the phone. But now in Beyonce's internet, we have text messaging. So you can text about 100 to 200 voters in about an hour. That's the intricacies behind political organizing. So to answer your earlier question, what can people do in this moment? They can get behind an independent Super PAC like mine, who's going to defend values and not necessarily be committed to candidates or party. And they can say, hey, I want to help build a strong infrastructure in North Carolina. I want to build a strong infrastructure in Virginia, but I live in Colorado. How do I do that? We're doing that. We're trying to create cultural opportunities for people to opt into politics, such as the Adopt a Voter campaign. And the Adopt a Voter campaign allows for you to purchase a t-shirt. And with that donation, that then funnels into a specific state or a specific district that we are prioritizing, and you'll have an opportunity to chase voters in those districts and in those states.
I think another thing that people wonder about is like when they donate money, where exactly that's going.
Yeah, it's all reported publicly to the FEC. So Super PACs have to report every expense to the FEC on a quarterly basis, and in certain states on a daily or weekly or monthly basis. Again, every state has a different election process and a different set of requirements for reporting. So it's my job as the president of this organization to make sure that all of our reporting is up to date. We actually have a report due to the FEC tomorrow. It is our end of year report from last year to show how much money we raised and where we spent it and how. So that's the great thing about a Super PAC, is that it's very transparent. You can disclose every single transaction. And if you don't disclose it, you can't really exist as a PAC.
Ooh, okay.
So this is, again, another transparent way for people to make transparent investments. And here's the thing, it's not
And someone could look
groundbreaking.
that up and see that for themselves.
Yeah, fec.com or
Mhm.
fec.gov, I believe it is. But I think that, it's not rocket, it's not new. This is not groundbreaking what I'm doing. I'm doing the exact thing that Big Pharma and the NRA and every other big lobbying organization has been doing to hold on to power.
If you're listening, you have to remember that this isn't something that these giant Elon Musk type people are investing in. So every dollar counts.
Yeah, and I love the J. Cole A Dollar in a Dream tour. Do you remember it?
Yes.
So I went to that. That was my first concert that I ever went to in my life.
Really?
Yes, was a Dollar in a Dream concert and at the Tabernacle in Atlanta, Georgia. I don't know, like a little over maybe 20 years. I don't know how long it was. It was a minute ago. And I remember him being an independent artist. The entire music industry silenced him and told him that they weren't going to sign him. And his Friday Night Lights Friday Night Lights
I know,
album.
it's a little tongue twister.
It is a bit of a tongue twister, but he was able to promote that album by selling concert tickets for $1. And he was able to become the artist that he is today. He forced the music industry to reckon with his message and with his art because he built a base that they could not deny. I plan on doing the same thing with my Super PAC. If I could get 1 million 18-year-olds in America to give me $1 a month, that's $12 million a year to influence elections on our terms.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that simple. It's simple math. The cost is, how do I get my message to 8 million, or how do I get my message to 1 million 18-year-olds to put that $1? But if I got even if I got 10,000 people to give me $1 reoccurring every month, we could chase a ballot with that. We can close the margin. I mean, a lot of these elections are won by a few thousand votes, if even. Many of them are won by a few hundred people. So a $10,000 expenditure in a very targeted district could actually move the needle in a statewide race or a congressional race.
And we're seeing that happen. I mean, look at Minneapolis right
Exactly.
now. Everybody that wants change, that is taking action, that is taking the streets, we are creating change already.
There are power in numbers.
And so they're looking for things and people like you who are doing things like this to get involved and donate and just raise what you're doing.
But even beyond individuals, brands, organizations, entities, LLCs, they can coordinate with us in a nonpartisan way, but still be very political.
We're also sitting here today on the day that a lot of the country is striking.
Yes. So all the folks who want to take political action, they can funnel resources and marketing spend and marketing budgets could be allocated to a Super PAC for media buys that have brand aligned political messaging, right? This is a tool that people have kept close to their chest to hold on to power. I hope to knock them over the head.
See, we need people that color outside the lines.
Yes, we do. I hope to knock them over the head and open the door for ordinary folks, ordinary brands to be able to come through the door and say, hey, listen, we want to adopt voters. We want this country to be a country that we can feel proud of again. How can we funnel resources? Where are the voters that need to hear from us? Because the numbers are there. There are enough young people, Black people, othered people in this world, women of all walks of life, who have enough voting power to change the trajectory of this country. What they don't have is the political infrastructure that they feel aligned with. If people feel aligned, they show up. And I hope to align myself with the people. I don't want to align with a party. I'm not interested in aligning on a candidate. I want to align with the people and then force the party and the candidates to align with us. So I appreciate the independent infrastructure that a Super PAC vehicle allows us to have. And it's not going to be an easy thing to do, but we're up for the fight. I've learned how to take several punches, and I'm sure I'll be taking plenty more as we continue to grow this thing. But yeah, I mean, I really do hope that folks will align with us and find a way to empower this vehicle to do the work that just simply needs to happen. There's too much bullshit.
Well, it really
happening.
does seem like that's what we need. We need to move in a way that it's not right versus left. It's exactly what you're doing. You know, it's kind of eliminating that, but bringing people together in a way that they can align with.
Yes.
So, you know, if you were to leave the listeners with something, what would you want them to take away today?
That you still have power. You know, like I know it's super scary right now. I know things are feeling incredibly frustrating right now, but you are not without power. We still live in the United States of America. We still have tools of democracy through state and local power that we can leverage. And it's designed to make you frustrated. It's designed to make you confused. You could have a degree from Harvard and still not understand how primary elections work because that's by design. You could have a degree from Yale and still not understand how super PACs work because that is by design. Power is designed to keep people in and keep people out. And I think in this moment, we all have a responsibility to stand up against power in a way that reclaims it. So that's what I would want to leave with folks. And if you're interested in doing that in an independent political way, if you are a fan of freedom, if you are a fan of bodily autonomy, if you love women like I do, then you will support the work that we're doing at My Body PAC. You will partner with us. You will help us close the margin in battleground states that will help us advance personal freedom across this country. And you will do it in a loud, unapologetic, sexy way that makes people reckon and force them to pay attention. So that is what I would leave your listeners with.
I mean, that's a mic drop right there. and I will leave all of your information in the show notes and the description. But to add to that, I will just say, ask questions. If you don't know the answer to something, don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah.
There's a lot of misinformation out there. If you hear something and you've always believed that, but you're starting to question it, lean in. Stay curious.
Absolutely.
And really feel that power within yourself, because when you do, like, that's an amazing feeling.
You're feeling it right now.
I totally am.
You're transforming sports into something that can be used as a tool for power because you're educating people, and information is the most powerful tool you can have.
And I'm still educating myself. I mean, I'm learning so much from you, and it's just so amazing and interesting when people come into your life and how a conversation like this can happen and the importance in that and the day that it lands on. But just to tie it back into baseball, baseball teaches us that not every hit is a home run.
Exactly.
But you continue to step up to the plate. So I just want people to continue to care and lean in and really learn. Good. And this connection, continue to let us bring us together. You know, see someone with a Dodger hat, go up and ask them about the game and see where that conversation takes you, because it's always more than baseball. And I'm so grateful that our talk about the Dodgers ended us here.
Absolutely. Because look at me, a girl from Brooklyn, a fan of the Yankees, dare I say, on this podcast.
Oh, it's okay. It's all right. We beat you guys last year.
I know you sure did. You really did. You beat everybody last year. But
2 years ago, Yankees.
Yeah, 2 years ago. But still,
back to back,
still world champions. We're not going to get into that. No, I'm just kidding. But a girl from the East Coast can find herself on a podcast dedicated to a West Coast team. Lets us know that there is room for finding ways to come together despite our differences, and I think that what you're doing, Melissa, with your podcast is incredible. And I think that you have an amazing opportunity to continue to use your voice on your terms. Right now, you're practicing autonomy. Right now, in this very moment, you are coloring outside of the lines. And whether you feel like it matters or not, you are making a difference. Someone's going to listen to this podcast and they're going to understand how power works in a way that they never would have understood it before. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to translate my experiences and my cause to your cause. And I think that this is contagious. Mm-hmm. When people see it, when people see community, they can't look away. And what we're building here is a communal conversation. White women, Black women, girl to girl conversation, who can agree on the fact that we just want this country to feel safe again. Mm-hmm. And we just want to be able to operate on our own terms. So thank you for being an example of that. And I really wish you nothing but much success with your podcast and much success with, your overall endeavor.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on and for having this conversation with me and allowing me to take my podcast in this direction and show how much sports does bring us together.
It does.
And I really want to end it on that, because I think we forget at times that we all do have things in common. So just remember, when you go to that baseball game, You look around, you don't care where anybody's from, what color their skin is,
At
who they
all.
voted for. You're all cheering on the same team and you have a shared love.
And that can translate into politics, that can translate into family life, it can translate in every asset of the world that we live in, but we have to be brave enough to make sure that it does.
Yes. So vote. Your vote matters.
Yes.
Your voice matters.
It does.
You matter. And go Dodgers.
Go Dodgers!
I just want somebody to talk Dodgers to me.